Hey there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on our next episode of Peep into Education through the lens of parents, educators, and families. My name is Kylie Elizabeth, also known as the Virtuoso Educator. And today we have a very special guest, super fun. I'm really excited to talk to him. We have Dakotah Tyler with us today, coming from Los Angeles. And Dakotah is an astrophysicist, and he is a PhD candidate at UCLA, studying astronomy as well as as astrophysicist, excuse me. He is also known as a science communicator, and he is a father, and really supports the community in the world of science. And he is also known as DT Star Kid on all social media. He has very fun content that really helps you learn about astronomy and astrology. And I just love his twists and the fun and quirks that he puts in the world of education in the field of science. And so I'm going to bring him in, and he is going to do some introductions for himself. And we're going to get right into our topics today. We're going to talk about some things, and then I'll share that with you all.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks,
Hey,
thanks, Kylie, for having me. Yeah,
absolutely.
so do a little intro.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. Yes, please feel free to introduce yourself, give us a little bit more in depth about you and who you are, and then we'll kind of get into our discussions today.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Dakotah. I am a PhD candidate at UCLA studying astronomy and astrophysics. And what I specifically study are planets, but in general, I really like studying space and sharing that with people through like my science communication stuff on social media and that sort of thing. And obviously, a big proponent of of education and like educating people on science and the scientific method and critical thinking. I think that it's really important, and my way of contributing to that is by doing the social media stuff and just trying to make science relatable and enjoyable. Yeah, you can see my website here, dakotahtyler.com. Check that out. Some of my research is on there, and a little bit about my story, which I guess I'll share here. So, I am getting my PhD right now. I actually have my dissertation proposal in a few days. It's coming up this week. But I wasn't always like on this academic track, as a scientist or as somebody who could like even do math. I used to play football at the University of Kentucky, and then I got injured in my third or fourth year, and I couldn't really train anymore. So I got redirected and had to figure out something else to do with my life. And for me, it was studying the universe. It's something that fascinates me, that I'm super interested in, and obviously very passionate about. And it just took off from there. It's a super long road and very challenging. Lots of lots of hurdles to overcome. It's not easy. But then I also learned a lot in that process about being disciplined and just developing these skill sets, and ultimately realizing that learning math, science, physics, whatever it is, they're just skills, and they're any skills that somebody else has, you can develop. There aren't like people who are. We tend to think this, and this is a huge thing. I'm sure you know this as an educator. There are people who sort of go into a topic or some arena thinking that they're good at that or that they're not good at that. Like, oh, I'm not very artistic, or I'm not very good at math. I'm not very good at literature, whatever it is. And usually these are like just false ideas that we have about ourselves. They're all skills that can be developed. If you know people who are good at math, it's a skill that you can develop. You may have to like work hard at it, but it's not. There aren't like math people and non-math people. There are just people who haven't developed those skills and people who have. And if anybody else can do it, you can do it. That's I think my big takeaway from my journey so far.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And yes, I didn't bring that up. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned, that you used to play football in the past. And yes, in the field of education, especially as we're working with our students, we always have to adjust that life happens and things change. And a big component, especially when I was teaching with the high school students, was give yourself, multiple in areas of interest, so you have different things to kind of fall back on. So
Yeah.
for you did have your interest in science, in astrology and astronomy as well, and so and then you have football, and so
Well,
trying
yeah,
to sort of
correction there. Not astrology. I do not study astrology. I
okay,
study astronomy and
got you.
astrophysics. Slight, subtle difference there.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. Yes. Thank you. Yes. So to have those differences, rights of opportunities for yourself, really important. And so you were touching on, just having, that was one of our parts of our conversation was, how do you build success, and how do you persevere in the world of education and change. So I'm kind of curious, tell me a little bit about your background and your education, how was your schooling, and where did you go to school kind of growing up, and what led you to UCLA?
Okay, so I mean, I had a what I would have what I had what I would I think describe as a normal like school. What ages are you talking about? Because I went back to school to do what I do now. Are you talking about um the part of schooling that has like led me to doing
Yeah.
astronomy? Or are you talking
Yeah.
about okay, yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah. And you can, yeah. So I guess when was your general interest in astronomy, and when did you pick it up? Were you always good in science, curriculum, even middle school, high school, wherever you can
yeah,
recollect?
no, I was never good ever at science or math or anything like that.
Okay.
I never really was interested in it really, or maybe I didn't spend that much time on it, that much time thinking about it, and I didn't really care about it. But then after I got hurt when I was playing football in college, I started watching these documentaries about astronomy and got really interested in the fact that there's, when you look up at the sky at night and you see stars. I'm in LA right now. You can't see any where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
but you see all these stars, and then you realize that they all have their own planets. Just like the
Mm-hmm.
sun has a bunch of planets, these other stars also have planets. And there's, countless stars, like 100 billion stars in our galaxy. And then there's like billions of other galaxies, or even trillions. So it just was really exciting for me to think about the possibilities, like what could be out there. We
Yeah.
probably can't really even imagine it. And so when I found out that that was a job that you could do, something you could do, I wanted to do it. But this was before I had the ability to do any of the math, any of the science skills, any of the physics. So I had to start over at that point.
Okay.
I graduated from UK, and I went back to community college and was doing math classes like algebra and trigonometry and beginner level physics. And then I like built my way up from community college and transferred to the University of Cincinnati, where I did my bachelor's in physics and astrophysics, a double
Okay.
major. And then after that, got into grad school at UCLA, where I'm at now, doing PhD in astrophysics. So I was not. It was not. I was never like good at science at any point in my life. I was never good at
Mm-hmm.
math. They were things that I struggled to learn, but was successful in learning through just like working hard and trying
Right.
to apply really like the work ethic that I think you develop as an athlete, or that I developed as an athlete, but
Sure.
to studying.
Okay.
Which I think I think that did give me a little bit of an advantage, because I was at least familiar with like trying really hard and working hard, even when you like fail or aren't good enough,
Yeah.
and then getting better. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's something that can be super discouraging, especially if you're not used to it. I think it's easy to fail and be like, oh well, guess I'm no good at that. I got a bad grade in that class. I'm just not a math person. But for me, when I got a bad grade in the class, I just retook the class and then got a good grade in it. And like, I think I have a different view on failure and what what growing is supposed to feel like. Like, it's not always good. Sometimes it feels bad. Sometimes it's really difficult.
Yeah, growth and change definitely for a lot of people is hard to maintain and then push yourself through, right? Especially depending on the levels of support and all of those things. So I guess when you had made the decision to go on, your revised journey of your educational goals and to reach the level that you are excelling in right now, what was a big motivator for you? And why do you feel that you push yourself so hard as you do to get to where you're at?
I guess for me, it has a lot to do with having a life / career / job / day to day that I like, that I enjoy, that I love to do. And for me, if I'm going to be able to have that, then working really hard and to study, to retake classes, whatever it is, sacrificing my weekends and my free time and sometimes social life to learn something or like reach that next milestone, whatever it is, pass that exam, is it's a small price to pay to like wake up every day for me and love what I'm doing. That's something that I would say that I have prioritized. Like we all prioritize different things as we're going through life or picking careers or whatever. And for me, one of the big ones was I just needed to not be bored with my day. Like, love it and be challenged and be interested. So that, for me, that's a huge motivator. And it was definitely tough early on because, starting at community college and even in my bachelor's, I wasn't doing the things I'm doing now. Like, I wasn't studying the stuff. I wasn't able to talk about it at an expert level. So there was a period in there where it was kind of like trusting that I would get to that point, even though I didn't really have the sort of tangible success or the tangible experience of being like, yes, like this is what I do it for. So, there was a lot of just belief that down the line I could get there. And now I feel like I am, I'm still doing my PhD. So it's not like, cotton candy and butterflies. There's still like a lot of hard work, but I really love what I do. And I really love the process. I really love, more than anything, is talking about it and sharing not just the stuff about space or whatever, but like that journey, that being resilient, being tough, growing, learning, trying to share that with other people like we're doing right now.
Awesome. Sorry, I got to write that down because I just had another question for later. But so you share a lot about your journey. And again, the way that you explain the concepts of being an astrophysicist and astronomy is very interesting. And of course, I do my research and look through your videos and kind of watched a lot of your content and got some really interesting things from what you've shared. And I think one kind of that falls in line with, the resilience is you talked about how planets, they fight stability, and which is the equilibrium, right? Where the core is kind of impacting in on itself and it's stable for a while until it becomes unstable. And you related that to how us as people can tend to avoid emotions and just kind of in general in our own life. So kind of, just how you related the concept and the learning of a planet and what it's doing with the equilibrium and to our emotions, again, that for people that don't understand science in general or things about planets, that was super, it's really helpful there. And so, again, I asked you, you gave me your answer about, why you're doing what you're doing, and it's for yourself, and which is it's awesome. And I'm kind of like the same way. It's like, what is the next level that I can get, to feel accomplished in my own right, and this is why I'm doing, what I'm doing today. And so I love that you shared that about yourself there. So kind of in relation to like that fighting that stability, what has been the biggest, I guess, struggle or hurdle as you are working through your doctoral degree, or even a little bit before that, just as you've been in this world of astrophysics?
The biggest hurdles, I think, would probably be, I think the biggest hurdle is probably, yeah, it's just being, well, it's not really that difficult for me, being like resilient, not letting losses and failures get to me. In academia, a lot of it is dependent upon like applying and getting things, like getting a fellowship, or I mean, I had to apply to get into grad school.
Right.
You apply for jobs, you apply for postdocs, and there's a very limited number for at each step that you go. There's a very limited number of like spots. So you end up like just facing like a lot of rejection that I think kind of beats people down, and that effect is magnified. You mentioned this, is magnified by like not having a community, or like not having much support from other people. And I think that just for me, I'm a little bit older than a lot of a lot of people who go like directly into grad school after undergrad. I've got a few years there, so I think that I'm a bit more comfortable with like sitting in that that like failure, those missteps, and not overthinking it, not like stewing on it too much, and just keeping moving, and like keeping building skills that I do have, and figuring out what things that I'm best at, and then trying to move in those directions, as opposed to trying to follow some predetermined thing, some like template path that a lot of people take. And so, but that is difficult to like go off and try to like do your own thing, or do it in your own way.
Sure.
But it gets easy. I guess it gets easier when you get a lot of positive validation, or like when you're getting positively confirmed because things are working out.
Yeah.
So that's probably, one of the tougher things is getting comfortable in your own path and like your own timeline, not comparing yourself to other people, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yes. And that all makes sense because, because of the world that we're in, and even speaking to our higher education learners, I love that you're saying that. We tend to, as people, compare ourselves to everybody, and what are they doing, right? And what are they not doing? And for us to just kind of be comfortable in our own skin, and really just hone into our general interest, two, what are we naturally gifted with, and where can our skills be best utilized, but then just 100% like owning like who you are as a person, and not being afraid to kind of go into those the path not taken. Let me not get into my Robert Frost song here, but just to be able to do the things that you really enjoy. And again, I love how you stated, I just enjoy looking at the stars, and I got interested in it, and I do that on a nightly. How I have a very great view. You might be a little jealous in my backyard of the stars, and I actually got to finally realize I've been in this house for about almost 3 years, and I have been consciously for the last year. I go out every night, and I have a basic little telescope, but I'm able to see the way that we're rotating and around, and how the moon is circling around us, and then, as well as in place of the constellation, I have a very clear view of Jupiter, and I can see it through my like, it's amazing, right? And then yes, like you said, like just how much is out there in the world, and I know I'm kind of like getting a little away from the theme, but it's like there's so much possibilities, and we are all kind of, especially in the education world, very streamlined into a specific path or a career, because of is it your family that wants you to do a certain thing? Is it the programs and the industries that, your high schools are able to offer and kind of push to you and present to you? Is it the representation? Do you have people that look like you that kind of influence you to do different things? Or just in general, are you very comfortable in knowing what you want, and do you avoid the background noise for what everybody else is doing? And I think it's very important, for us as individuals. So, anybody that's listening in, and if you're kind of questioning, what are you doing? Like you said earlier, you want to love what you're doing. And wake up, and if it's a job, if it's your career, if it whatever it is that you're talking about, you have to be comfortable with it, and you have to love it. But then you also have to know the content and know what you're speaking on in order to be kind of comfortable and confident in there. So I very much love that. And yes, and for people to have the support, who is supporting you through your educational journey, and who you have. And that's kind of a subtopic that I talk about in another session is, with family and community, as well as with educators, are you supporting the general interest of students? And I'll kind of give you just a little insight to the viewers as well, is that, I work with the Career and Technical Education Unit here in Arizona. And what a lot of people don't realize is programs that are offered at the high school levels, especially for industry to students, is it's based off of the local needs. So what is the outlook looking like for the city and the district that you're living in and where you're attending? And so, if a student is generally interested in science and astrophysics, in any of that world, if there's not a need for it, you're not going to get that industry based learning, right? You're going to have to kind of seek that somewhere else. And so I've always advocated, when I was teaching high school, especially my seniors, if our school didn't offer something that they were interested in, what can we do as educators to make sure that the students are getting exposure to those things that they're generally interested in? Because this is why you have a lot of disconnect in schools, because students are just not able to connect with what it is that what you're offering, because it's not interesting. And kind of cycling back, for example, here in Arizona, because Arizona is a state that's expanding, we have a lot of construction, a lot of engineering, a lot of healthcare work that is planned to grow over the next 10 years. And so those are those big programs that are offered at the high schools for students to get industry-based levels. But it's like, you still have people that are interested, in the work that you do, or interested in music. I have a music background in the arts, and it doesn't mean it's less important. So again, how are we really making sure that the kids have access to those things that they're interested in, but of course, getting them the content knowledge that they should know in our general education. So that kind of segues into another topic that I enjoyed watching is, so you gave a video on about physics and through the waves, and you mentioned how waves work when they're in water, and also in relation to the planets. And so you mentioned how this can be similar through fads and trends, and like waves through society. And so my question is, like, what do you feel is kind of like a current trend or a wave today in our educational world? And you can kind of speak in context to things that you...
A trend in the educational world. I mean, I guess a trend now, and it's all tied together, right? I think it's closely tied with social media, because a lot of education now is like virtual and is through social media. And even if it's not, people are on social media so much that they're constantly learning from it. So they could be even learning things that are completely wrong, or that are not meant to really be educational, if that makes sense. And so I think that there's this trend right now for like sort of quick and maybe misinformation. There's like a trend of misinformation that is like constant. And it like presents an interesting challenge to combat for people who are educators, because almost a lot of times, and for a lot of people, like a natural mistrust of the government or authority leads them to like doubt anything that like an official educator may say, or maybe talking about, or like science. Any organization that does science is like can be deemed as like untrustworthy or something like that, just from people not mistrusting authority. And so there's this interesting trend in education of trying to deliver quickly and accurately correct information that is competing with information that may be completely wrong. And because there's so much more range on, if you don't care if what you're saying is actually right, like is like technically and factually right, then you have like a lot more room to be a lot more interesting and a lot more engaging, because you're not really constrained by anything.
Right.
And it's it's an interesting thing that I guess I've noticed since I started making science videos, on Facebook, and TikTok, and Instagram, and that sort of thing.
Yes. And that's a huge point. And again, so that is a topic that I do talk about as well, is especially for our younger kids, right? And the teens. Social media is so hard just on the brain in general, emotions, but now we're trying to affect learning through social media. I try to fight it myself. I was like, no, I'm not doing a podcast. Nope, I'm not doing social media like this, because that's the trend, right? But then it's like, okay, that's the trend, so I need to jump on board. But how are we making sure, like you said, that the information that's being shared is accurate? And are you doing your due diligence, your research, when you hear something or see something and that you're interested in? Are you following up on it, or are you taking that information to heart and you're like, oh, they posted about it, so it has to be true? And I see that all the time all day long through our social media accounts.
Oh, looks like we lost the host.
Sorry about that. Did it just cut me out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I held it down though while you were gone.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, backing up. So so for our I was talking about how the social media, it's very hard on the educational learning, and how, students really people in general, anyone kind of takes to heart to what is being said without doing their due diligence and research, and looking up the facts about what it is that they just learned. And even I see this as a parent, even with my own children. This is why I am very stern about what content that they're seeing on social media and what are they watching, because kids are impressionable, and everybody is. But the more mature you are, right, the older you are, the more you know better to kind of hopefully take it as it is, and look, right? Yes, hopefully. And we can even it even goes back to what the 1969, when they first landed on the moon. NASA first went to the moon. So it's like people, and then they're like, oh, they didn't really, that was all made up, right? So you kind of have, this is where we get into these theories, and is it accurate, is it not accurate, and how do you know that it's true? And so I was discussing how, again, just to make sure that we're really looking into the facts and the data about the information that we're obtaining. And then even when you're like browsing online, when you're looking at websites, we all need to be very mindful of where is the content coming from, and who is it coming from, who is it connected to, and what is the overall goal, and why they're delivering certain messaging to you. And this can apply towards any topic, right? It could, we could say this cup of water is clear, but someone sees it and it's like, no, it's actually green. So, you know what I mean? So it could be like all those things, as basic as that, to the world of science. And just, I think the world that you're in, and just generally thinking, there's so many possibilities when we think about planets, when we think about outside of our galaxy, like all of those things. And it's just very fascinating. But yet we are so sucked in to the things that are being said through social media, and without just having kind of our own thought process and our own ideas. And that's something that I've noticed too. And
It's hard it's hard to like appropriate to feel. We're humans, like we're humans. That's why marketing is a thing. Like marketing and advertising is I don't know, like multi-billion or trillion-dollar industry for a reason, because it works. Like the down to the colors that products you put on them, like all of it is designed to do something to us. So the idea that even if we're aware of it, the idea that we could like perfectly protect ourselves against, being influenced or, absorbing something that subconsciously we believe is true, even if we may not be able to verbalize it, it's a difficult thing for anybody. But yeah, it's like sort of as educators, that is what we're trying to get people to focus more on, to like more cognizant of, how do you determine if this is right or wrong, true or false?
Yep. And so I love that you mentioned earlier too, and it is on your social media page that, you just published your first paper. And so just kind of doing, a little bit of deep dive and background into the topics, and how do you study, and how do you, utilize appropriate resources to even get this such in-depth information that you even shared through your paper. It's amazing, but and we know that not everybody has, an educator mind or skill sets to generally do research in a specific way. And of course, it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of studying and a lot of support in that way, and knowing the appropriate resources too. So kind of what does that look like? I just want to touch on that a little bit. I'll be sure to share the screen, but what were some major things that you had to do to get your paper published around the topic? And I'll let you share what it is.
So the paper is on, or my research project was on this planet that was it's a gas giant. So it's a huge gas planet that orbits really close to its star. So a year on Earth is 365 days, but a year on this planet, this hot Jupiter, is like 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 Earth days. This thing orbits its star completely. So it's really hot, and it's actually so hot that the gas is expanding and being blasted away by the star. So that's what my paper's on. The system's called WASP 69, and the planet is called WASP 69b. But what that entails is making observations. I'm an observer, so we use like telescopes. We make the observations, and then you analyze them. You analyze the photons, right? All we're studying is light. And we know so much about light, the physics of light, how it works in certain circumstances, how it interacts with certain molecules, that you can, here's a figure for my paper. So you can see on this little diagram on the left, there's that planet is losing its atmosphere, and that's like a little schematic that I put in the paper so you can see exactly what's happening. There's like this big tail of atmosphere that has been stripped away from the planet. That's like several 100,000 miles long. But yeah, so we're analyzing the data and trying to like reconstruct exactly what's going on based again on what we know about the physics of light and how the physics of interactions between planets and stars. And so you do that analysis, write it up, and then you send it to a journal. I sent mine to the Astrophysical journal, and they have a reviewer, somebody else, oftentimes multiple people that will review your work that are experts in whatever subfield that it is, and they'll go through and they'll see if they agree with the science done, if they agree with your analysis, they agree with the techniques. If there's any holes, if there's anything that's missing that hadn't been considered, and then they will send you back those comments. So this is the peer review process. Then I get the comments and I see, oh, they said there's A, B, C, and D that don't quite make sense, or that we should check to be sure we could like rule out this thing, or sure up our number over here, better describe some of the assumptions that we made, whatever it is. And you address all those things, and usually what happens is your paper becomes better, like the quality is improved, because another expert who's just objectively wants all of this stuff to be as right as possible, and is true to reality as possible. You send them off again, and then when all parties like agree that this is like good information, that is all seems right, all seems reliable, then it'll get accepted. And that's what happened for me last week or the week before. But it's a long process. It's a long time. You got to get the observations, you have to analyze everything, you have to write everything up, and then you have to go through and kind of perfect. I mean, maybe not perfect, may not be the right word, but at least make sure that everything could stand up in court, basically. In the court of physics and the court of science. So there's a lot
like
of
peer editing and peer review, but just like on the highest one of the higher levels.
Literally the same thing on a technical level. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that you shared that too, because I've always wanted to do some type of educational article or, just not so much as a dissertation, right? Because you're working through that too, I'm assuming through your doctoral degree. Were there any like helpful online tools that helped you with kind of your research when you were putting together your data for this, that you can kind of think on top of your head?
Well, I guess a big point of reference are other work that's been done, other papers. So when you're writing the paper, you end up citing a lot of other previous work. So there's been other observations that have been published that have been similar to mine, or that have been different in various ways. Similar instrument, similar planet, different instrument, different planets. A lot of simulation work. So like people who do 3D simulations, who are theorists instead of actual observers. And you kind of you look at the whole body of everything that we know, and all of it sort of comes together to both do the analysis and also try to find out something new. So this planet specifically had been observed before by other groups, and they had written about it, and we saw something that was a little bit different than what they saw. So that was an interesting result. They saw like that tail that you were showing in that figure from the paper. They saw like a small one, but we saw a really big one. And so a part of the analysis is figuring out, why is that? Like, why are multiple people looking at the same object but seeing something different, and coming up with the things that could be going on. And there could be a handful of things. I think we figured out what the main driver was of the difference was we just had a bigger telescope. And in astronomy, the bigger telescope you have, the more you see, literally. Yeah, like just the more light. So that's not a revelation or anything. Astronomers, I think, pretty know that like big telescope is better. But it's important to like understand the context of your work as it relates to the other work in the field.
Nice. And that completely makes sense. So I will be sure to link in the post to your website so everybody can see that you have shared access to your publication as well, and things like that. So thank you for sharing kind of what that process looks like a little bit. And so for those that are interested in, you know, publication and kind of getting your work put through, or if you're going through a doctoral program, you know, just kind of thinking of who you can reach out to if you're doing scientific research and how you can back up your claims and things like that. I think something that was fascinating when you're talking about telescopes is I've been following since the James Webb telescope has been released, the new one, and just kind of I'm on the page, I'm on the social media pages and just seeing like the images, right, that kind of come through. And so just advancement in technology, and you know, we're about the same age, but you know, just seeing how things have changed through technology since we were younger, and kind of what is accessible to us now, and you know, just as minor as having something that's a little bit better, but now we have something like the James Webb telescope that's just giving us so much new information. Have you found anything interesting from that release of that yet, or were you able to use any data from? Probably not, because it just got released.
My research group doesn't really use that that instrument for what we do. It has, so a lot of people want to use it. Obviously it's the best, but like you said, it's the most, I mean, honestly, it's like one of the most impressive instruments, pieces of technology that I think humans have ever made, not just in astronomy, but because you're literally able to see like the first galaxies that ever existed in the universe, which is, it's a wild concept. So it's used a lot for those sorts of like large scale things. A lot of the research that I do, because I'm studying planets, they're like very local. It's kind of like things that are relatively nearby. When you're talking about on the scale of like galaxies on the other side of the universe, the things I look at are basically in our backyard. And James Webb does do those, but it does it at a, like, a lot of people who do that are like trying to figure out what is on atmospheres in planets, or they're trying to like look at young planets that are forming. And so I could do some of the work that I do with James Webb, but it's not most efficient in the sort of thing that I need. It's kind of kind of overkill. And it's also really hard to get time on that telescope for the reason, like, everybody wants to use it, and it can do a number of things. But what have I found that's interesting? Just about everything that they release is interesting. There's planets that they're looking at to see if they're like, they'll be like Earth-sized planets, and they're trying to see if they have atmospheres or not. Sometimes we can see them, sometimes not. There have been worlds that it's looked at that maybe had a molecule that we know life gives off. I think it's called dimethyl sulfide, I believe, and it's like something that plankton and algae in the ocean gives off. And they may have found that, which are like maybe is a sign of life, but it's a super weak signal, so who knows. And then these galaxies, they're finding galaxies that are 13 billion years old, which is crazy. So almost everything. And I mean, I follow all of their all of the James Webb accounts on social media, and the pictures they release are like just insane.
It is. So I added, just so everybody can see what we're talking about, James Webb Space Telescope. This was one of the most recent released telescopes into our galaxy, and it just gives amazing clear pictures. So if you like to research and kind of look at things like that, this is a really great site to kind of take a peek at. So I'm not, promoting or anything here, but I just wanted to share because I just found it like super fascinating. And so you cleared, a lot of questions for me, because for me, it's just like, I don't know all the ins and outs, right, of specific, because of course everybody's like, oh, science is science, but it's not. You're very, very, just like in the medical field, there's very nuanced versions of different things in the world, and the same goes to astronomy and studying what, who we are within the planet and our galaxy. So I think that's super fun. Thank you so much for sharing that information and kind of set me clear there. So the other thing, as we kind of get going, I was looking at kind of the services that you offer, and that's on your website. So I see that you do your speaking engagements, and you talk about STEM and motivation and science expertise. So for those of you that are following, if you would like to book Dakotah, he has that on his website. He does consultations and hosts some things. So those are all up there for you all to view. I definitely want to make sure that you follow him on all social media platforms at DT Star Kid. So he's on there. And yes, I'm just super thankful that you came on, and I definitely want to, touch base with you on some more topics as we kind of get in there. So I think my last question for you today is, as a person that and as I guess I'm going to say more of an adult educator, adult student, right? Because you have you made that transition. What do you feel is going to be, as a student in their doctoral program, what is something that colleges can assist better with to make sure that doctoral students are successful in completing their programs?
That's a good question. So, grad school in general is like it's very self-driven, and requires like a lot of motivation, and you can you have to be your own motor there to get wherever it is that you want to go. And so in my field, I couldn't speak too generally. In my field, what is really important is the connection or the relationship between the advisor and the student. So my department, I don't really know that there's anything that they could or couldn't do that would be more impactful than my advisor, and like that relationship and making sure that we like connected and we're compatible there. So I would say that, I also wouldn't really trust colleges or universities to take the right steps to support the students. So I would say that, as a grad student, you need to like really do your homework and try to connect with the right advisor who's like your mentor, right? And whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And that can really make or break the experience, and from what I've seen for a lot of grad students. So finding somebody who is supportive, who has like a track record of being supportive and doing what it takes for their students to succeed is probably the thing that you could do best for you as a grad student. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's somebody that went through my master's. It's definitely self-motivated, and I call myself a queen of procrastination. As somebody who is a procrastinator, don't do it. So if you are, a person that's looking into working on your master's or doctoral degree, just make sure you have plans in place. Make sure you have the right people on your team to give you that support, and people to keep encouraging you to move along and hold yourself accountable for the work that you're doing. Because I do know if you start kind of tailoring back, it's not like high school. It's not like your undergrad, where they kind of push you. No, this is very self-motivated, self-driven. So definitely heed our words from somebody who's experienced both of us both have experienced this. And so thank you again, Dakotah. I really appreciate your time and for sharing just yourself and all the things that you do. And I look forward to connecting a little bit more. So I'm going to have you kind of stay on. But my guests that were watching today, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Peep Into Education. And be sure to like, follow, subscribe myself, Kylie Elizabeth, the Virtual Educator, as well as Dakotah Tyler, DT Star Kid on all social media. And thank you guys so much and have a great day.